RMS Queen Mary.Queen is a transatlantic ocean liner. She is the only major ocean liner built for Cunard Line since Queen Elizabeth II. In 1969, the vessel she succeeded as flagship of the Cunard Line. The new ship was named Queen Mary.Queen by Queen Elizabeth II in 2004 after the first 1936 namesake ship RMS Queen Mary. Queen Mary was in turn named after Mary of Teck, consort of King George V. With the retirement of Queen Elizabeth II in 2008, Queen Mary.Queen was the only transatlantic ocean liner in line service between Southampton and New York, which operates for part of each year. The ship is also used for cruising, including an annual world cruise. The ship was designed by a team of British naval architects led by Stephen Payne, and was constructed in France by transatlantic in 2003. At the time of her construction, Queen Mary.Queen was the longest passenger ship ever built, and with her gross tonnage of 148,528 also the largest. She no longer holds this distinction after the construction of Royal Caribbean International's 154,407 GT Freedom of the Seas in April 2006, but remains the largest ocean liner ever built. Queen Mary.Queen was intended for routine crossings of the Atlantic Ocean, and was therefore designed differently from many other passenger ships. The ship's final cost was approximately $300,000 US per berth. Expenses were increased by the high quality of materials, and having been designed as an ocean liner, she required 40% more steel than a standard cruise ship. Queen Mary.Queen has a maximum speed of just over 30 knots and a cruising speed of 26 knots, much faster than a contemporary cruise ship. Instead of the diesel-electric configuration found on many ships, Queen Mary.Queen uses integrated electric propulsion to achieve her top speed. This uses gas turbines to augment the power generated from the ship's diesels. Queen Mary.Queen's facilities include 15 restaurants and bars, 5 swimming pools, a casino, a ballroom, a theater, and the first planetarium at sea. There are also kennels and a nursery on board. Characteristics: Queen Mary.Queen is the flagship of Cunard Line. The ship was constructed for eventual replacement of the aging Queen Elizabeth II. The Cunard flagship from 1969 to 2004 and the last major ocean liner built before the construction of Queen Mary.Queen. Queen Mary.Queen had the Royal Mail ship title conferred on her, as a gesture to Cunard's history, by Royal Mail when she entered service in 2004 on the Southampton to New York route. Queen Mary.Queen is not a steamship like many of her predecessors, but is powered primarily by 4 diesel engines, with 2 additional gas turbines used when extra power is required. This integrated electric propulsion configuration is used to produce the power to drive her 4 electric propulsion pods, as well as powering the ship's hotel services. Like her predecessor Queen Elizabeth II, she is built for crossing the Atlantic Ocean, though she is regularly used for cruising. In the winter season she cruises from New York to the Caribbean on 12 or 13-day tours. Queen Mary.Queen's 30-knot open ocean speed sets the ship apart from cruise ships, such as MS Oasis of the Seas, which has an average speed of 22.6 knots. QM2's normal service speed is 26 knots, while the hull of a cruise ship will typically have a block coefficient of 0.73. Queen Mary.Queen has a coefficient of 0.61. Design and construction. Cunard completed a design for a new class of 84,000 GT 2,000 passenger liners on 8 June 1998, but revised them upon comparing those specifications with Carnival Cruise Line's 100,000 GT Destiny-class cruise ships and Royal Caribbean International's 137,276 GT Voyager class. In December 1998, Cunard released details of Project Queen Mary, the project to develop a liner that would complement Queen Elizabeth II. Holland and Wolf of Northern Ireland, Akakana of Norway, Fincantieri of Italy, Mauerwerft of Germany, and Chantiers de l'Atlantique of France were invited to bid on the project. The contract was finally signed with Chantiers de l'Atlantique, who are a subsidiary of Alstom, on 6 November 2000. This was the same yard that built Cunard's former rivals, the SS Normandy and SS France of the Compagnie Générale Transatlantique. Due to QM2's size and complexity, the shipyard resourced the project at 1.7 to 2 times higher than a typical cruise ship. Her keel was laid down on 4 July 2002 in the construction dock at Saint-Nazaire, France, with the hull number G32. Approximately 3,000 craftsmen spent around 8 million working hours on the ship, and around 20,000 people were directly or indirectly involved in her design, construction, and fitting out. In total, 300,000 pieces of steel were assembled into 94 blocks off the dry dock, which were then stacked and welded together to complete the hull and superstructure. After floating out on 21 March 2003, the QM2 was fitted out in the large fitting-out basin, the first ship to use this huge dry dock since the shipyard built large tankers in the 1970s, such as the MV Gastor. Her sea trials were conducted during 25 to 29 September and 7 to 11 November 2003, between Saint-Nazaire and the offshore islands of Isle d'Yeu and Belle Isle. The final stages of construction were marred by a fatal accident on 15 November 2003, when a gangway collapsed under a group of shipyard workers and the relatives who had been invited to visit the vessel. In total, 32 people were injured and 16 were killed after a 15-meter fall into the dry dock. Construction was completed on schedule. Cunard took delivery in Southampton, England, on 26 December 2003. On 8 January 2004, the liner was officially named by Queen Elizabeth II. Exterior Queen Mary II's principal naval architect was Carnival's in-house designer, Stephen Payne. Payne intended many aspects of the ship's design to resemble notable aspects of former ocean liners, such as Queen Elizabeth II and the ship's predecessor Queen Mary. These features include the 3 thick black lines that wrap around either edge of the ship's bridge screen, and at the stern end of the superstructure, which are to recall the appearance of the crossovers of the forward decks on the first Queen Mary. Queen Mary II has 14,164 square meters of exterior deck space, with windscreens to shield passengers as the ship travels at high speeds. 3 of the ship's 4 swimming pools are outdoors. One of the pools on Deck 12 is covered with a retractable magradome. The indoor pool is on Deck 7, in the Canyon Ranch Spa Club. In common with liners such as RMS Queen Mary, there is a continuous wraparound promenade deck on Deck 7. The promenade passes behind the bridge screen and allows passengers to completely circumnavigate the deck while protected from the strong winds generated by the ship at speed. One circuit of the promenade is a distance of 620 meters. The flanking promenades are created by the need to step the superstructure in to allow for space for lifeboats. By SOLAS standards, the lifeboats should have been lower on the ship's hull above the waterline, but for the sake of Queen Mary II's appearance as well as to avoid the danger of large North Atlantic waves damaging the boats in a storm, Payne convinced SOLAS officials to exempt Queen Mary II from this requirement, and the boats are 25 meters above the waterline. Payne's initial intent was to make the ship's stern profile with a spoon shape, similar to that on most previous ocean liners, but the mounting of the propeller pods required a flat transom. The compromise was a Constanzi stern, a combination of the two. The final design was agreed upon, as a Constanzi stern provides the transom required for azimuthal pod propulses, and provides better sea-holding characteristics in a following swell than a standard transom stern. In common with many modern ships, both passenger and cargo, Queen Mary II has a bulbous boat to reduce drag and thereby increase speed, range, and fuel efficiency, while of a design similar to that of Queen Elizabeth II, Queen Mary II's funnel has a slightly different shape, because a taller funnel would have made it impossible for the ship to pass under the Verrazano Narrows Bridge in New York City at high tide. The final design now permits a minimum of 13 feet of clearance under the bridge at high tide. As Queen Mary II was too large to dock in many ports, passengers are ferried to and from the ship in tenders, which can be used as lifeboats in an emergency. These are stored while at sea in davits alongside the lifeboats. To transport passengers to shore, the tenders pull up to one of 4 loading stations, each of which has a large hull door that hydraulically opens outwards to form a boarding platform, complete with railings and decking. Queen Mary II is a post-Panamax ship. As a result, Queen Mary II must circumnavigate South America to cross between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The decision not to constrain her size to transit the Panama Canal was taken as Queen Elizabeth II only transited once a year. During the World Cruise, Cunard decided to pass up the convenience of the occasional passage in favor of a greater passenger capacity. Interior. As is the case with many modern passenger ships, many of the major public rooms on board Queen Mary II are on the lowest public decks of the ship, with the passenger cabins stacked above. This is the opposite of the traditional practice on ocean liners, but the design allowed for larger rooms to be contained within the stronger hull, as well as for more passenger cabins to have private balconies higher up on the ship, where they are less affected by large waves. Payne attempted to create a central access to the 2 main public room decks, but a full vista is broken by various public rooms that span the full beam of the ship. The dining rooms were placed further aft, though not directly at the stern, where the fore and aft pitching of the ship is most noticeable, and might cause discomfort to dining passengers. Deck 2, the lowest passenger deck, contains the Illuminations Theatre, Cinema and Planetarium, Royal Court Theatre, Grand Lobby, Empire Casino, Golden Lion Pub, and the lower level of the Britannia Restaurant. Deck 3 holds the upper levels of Illuminations, the Royal Court Theatre, and the Britannia Restaurant, as well as a small shopping arcade. Veuve Clicquot Champagne Bar, the Chart Room, Sir Samuel's Wine Bar, the Queen's Room, and the G32 nightclub. The other main public deck is Deck 7, on which are the Canyon Ranch Spa, Winter Garden, King's Court, the Queen's Grill Lounge, and the Queen's Grill and Princess Grill restaurants for higher fare passengers. The public rooms on deck include the a la carte English restaurant, an 8,000-volume library, a bookshop, and the upper part of the Canyon Ranch Spa. Also in Deck 8 is a large outdoor pool and terrace at the stern. The kennels, located aft on starboard side of Deck 12, are available only for transatlantic crossings. They can accommodate up to 12 dogs and cats in 6 small and 6 large cages. The King's Court area on the ship is open 24 hours a day, serving as a buffet restaurant for breakfast and lunch. The overall space is divided into quarters, with each section decorated according to the theme of the 4 separate alternate dining venues that are created each evening through lighting, tableware and menus. Lotus, which specializes in Asian cuisine, the Carvery, a British-style grill, La Piazza, with Italian food, and the Chef's Galley, which offers an interactive experience to food preparation. The passengers' dining arrangements on board are dictated by the type of accommodation in which they choose to travel. Around 85% of passengers are in Britannia class, and therefore dine in the main restaurant. However, passengers can choose to upgrade to either a junior suite and dine in the Princess Grill, or a suite and dine in the Queen's Grill. Those in the 2 latter categories are grouped together by Cunard as Grill passengers, and they're permitted to use the Queen's Grill Lounge and a private outdoor area on Deck 11 with its own whirlpool. This feature is also present on both Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. However, all other public areas can be used by all passengers, as the Britannia restaurant takes up the full width of the ship on 2 decks. A tween deck, called Deck 3L, was devised to allow passengers to walk from the grand lobby to the Queen's room without traversing the dining room mid-meal. The deck consists of 2 corridors that run beneath the upper balcony of the restaurant on Deck 3, and above the main dining area on Deck 2. This is why the balcony of the Britannia has tiers that step up towards the hull. This arrangement is illustrated on the hull, where there is a stack of 3 rows of windows in the area where the main restaurant sits. The 2 upper and lowermost rows illuminate the dining room, while the center row serves Deck 3L. There is a similar arrangement through the Royal Court Theatre, as well. The passages that run on either side of illuminations on Deck 3 ramp upwards to compensate for the change in deck elevation between the entrance to illuminations and an elevator bank forward of the room. More than 5,000 commissioned works of art are visible in Queen Mary 2's public rooms, corridors, staterooms and lobbies, having been created by 128 artists from 16 different countries. 2 of the most notable pieces are Barbara Broekman's Tapestry, an abstract depiction of an ocean liner bridge, and New York's skyline, which spans the full height of the Britannia restaurant, and the British sculptor John McKenna's sheet bronze relief mural in the grand lobby. A 7 meters square portrait of the ship fabricated in bronze inspired by the Art Deco mural in the main dining room of the original Queen Mary. 2016 refit. In July 2015, Cunard announced plans for a month-long refit of Queen Mary 2 at the Blohm+Voss shipyard in Germany in late May and June 2016. Major changes include the addition of 15 individual staterooms, which will be the first on the ship, 30 additional balcony staterooms, and 10 more animal kennels. Technical, power plant and propulsion system. Queen Mary 2's power plant comprises both 4 16-cylinder Wärtsilä 16V46CR Enviro engine marine diesel engines, generating a combined 67,200 kilowatts at 514 revolutions per minute, as well as 2 General Electric LM2500 plus gas turbines, which together provide a further 50,000 kilowatts, all of which is converted into electricity used to power electric motors that drive the propellers. Such an arrangement, known as integrated electric propulsion, provides for economical cruising at low speed combined with an ability to sustain much higher speeds when required, and has been common in naval vessels for some time. While Queen Mary 2 is the first passenger ship to feature IEP propulsion, the first major passenger vessel to be powered by gas turbines was the Finnish ferry GTS Finjet in 1977. Thrust is provided by 4 Rolls-Royce Mermaid azimuth thruster-type podded propulsion units, each featuring one forward-facing low-vibration propeller with separately bolted blades. The forward pair of thrusters is fixed, but the aft pair can swivel through 360 degrees, removing the need for a rudder. The Queen Mary 2 is the first quadruple propeller passenger ship completed since the SS France in 1961. Queen Mary 2 carries 8 spare blades on the foredeck, immediately forward of the bridge screen. Because Queen Mary 2's propulsion machinery is electrically decoupled from her propellers, her propulsion arrangement may arguably be more accurately described as CODLAG electric. However, integrated electric propulsion is the term of art. The diesel engines and gas turbines drive electric generators, which provide the power to drive for 21,500 kilowatts Alstom electrical motors located inside the podded propulsors. Unusually, Queen Mary 2's gas turbines are not housed along with her diesels in the engine room deep in her hull, but instead are in a soundproofed enclosure directly beneath the funnel. This arrangement allowed the vessel's designers to supply the oxygen-hungry turbines with their intakes without having to run air ducts the height of the ship, which would have wasted valuable interior space. Navigation. Queen Mary 2 has a state-of-the-art navigation system designed by British firm Kelvin Hughes, meeting and exceeding all International Maritime Organization regulations. The system consists of 6 radar navigation scanners and 8 multifunction display units. The system includes the latest generation of electronic chart display and information system, allowing for fully paperless navigation and redundancy of operation. Queen Mary 2 is fitted with Kelvin Hughes solid-state sharp eye trademark sign radar scanners. Water supply. Fresh water aboard Queen Mary 2 is supplied by 3 seawater desalination plants. The plants, each with a capacity of 630,000 liters per day, use multiple effect plate distillation technology. The plant's energy is supplied primarily by steam and cooling water from the ship's gas turbines and diesel engines, or if needed by steam from the ship's 2 oil-fired boilers. The traditional multiple effect distillation technology has been improved for the ship's plant, so that scaling of plates is reduced, vastly reducing maintenance required. The desalinated water has a very low salt content of less than 5 parts per million. Average total water production is 1,100,000 liters per day with a capacity of 1,890,000 liters, so that there is ample spare capacity. The ship could easily be supplied by only 2 of the 3 plants. Potable water tanks have a capacity of 3,830,000 liters, enough for more than 3 days of supply. If the engines are running on low load, the engine jacket cooling water temperature is insufficient to heat the seawater to run the desalination plants. In that case, steam from oil-fired boilers is used to heat the seawater. This is uneconomical as generating steam is expensive. It may be cheaper, therefore, to buy water in a particular port than to produce it on board. The seawater intakes are located in the hull of the ship. Concentrated salt solution is discharged to the sea closer to the ship's stern together with cooling water from the engines. An additional plant was added during the 2016 refit works.